Hello, welcome to this channel. My name is Hi Smart. In this video, I'll be teaching you how you can create this 3D computer lab. Render it out in form of animation or picture that we can post on social network. Are you excited? I guess yes. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, you can do so now because I'll be dropping video tutorials every week, so I don't want you to miss out. Subscribe now. Back to the business. This video will be divided into 4 sections. The part 1 of the video will be the introduction to the software we will be using, that is Blender. If you're new to Blender or you're new to 3D in general, this part of the video is for you. But if you are used to Blender before, you know basic things about Blender, then you can skip this part and go to the next part. Part 2 of the video is modeling, where we'll be modeling the objects arranged together to form a scene. Then the part 3 will be texturing and lightning, where we can apply some texture to make the object look more realistic and put up the light just to make the scene look good. Then the part 4 of it, which is the final part, will be the animating and rendering. So if you stick to the end of this video, I'm very sure you're going to learn a lot. So stay tuned and let's get started. Welcome to part 1 of the video series on how to create 3D computer lab, and this is the introduction to the software we will be using. The software we'll be using is Blender. When you open Blender, the default splash screen you are going to see. If you are using 2.82 like me, this is exactly what you're going to see. But if you are using 2.83 or the lower version or higher version, the splash screen will be different. How can we install Blender? To install Blender on the system, then you go to blender.org. Once the page is fully loaded, here is the page. You can firstly explore the sites. For you to know what Blender is all about, you can just go to the sites to see what Blender can do. To install Blender is very easy. Just click on download. This is the latest version 2.83, but in my own case I'm using 2.82, but the version you're using doesn't matter in this case. Either you're using 2.83 or you're using 2.82, no problem. So to download this software, just click here, but it will be nice you firstly go through the requirements of the system. So to check the system requirements, just click on this download, then go to requirements. You click on the requirements, it will show you what you need. Blender can run on any OS, either Windows, Mac OS or Linux, doesn't matter. If you're using Windows 10, you're using Windows 8.1 or Windows 7, Blender is going to run on your system. Or you're using Mac, that is Apple, then it can still run on OS 10.02. Yeah, then you are still using Linux, you can still install Blender. It requires no internet connection. So the minimum requirement or the hardware requirement is this. You must have like 64 bits dual core, and the recommended one is 64 bits dual core CPU. So 4 gig RAM or 16 gig RAM. And if you're using 16 gig RAM, you know how fast. Using 4 gig RAM is okay, but it's not recommended. This is recommended, and this is like the best of the best. If you have 64 bits, 8 core CPU, 32 gig RAM, full HP display, 3 button mouse, like imagine your experience in using Blender will be wow compared to when you are using 64 bits dual core, 2 GHz CPU, or you are using 4 gig RAM, 1280 766 display. You know, the difference is just like the fast experience you're going to have in using Blender will be very, very different from these minimum requirements that they recommended up to Etsuma. Though my own system requirements falls on that here, and my system is still doing good. So if you don't have money to buy a new system, you can still start with what you have. It doesn't matter. Again, one thing you have to consider now is the graphics card. Most people are chatting me up on WhatsApp that, okay, please, I installed Blender, I'm having issue of graphics problem, this one that. Yes, you need this graphics card on your system. It's a must. If you are using HP, Dell or any other system, then please try to check if your system is having this Nvidia or AMD or Intel. It's very, very important, because without this graphics card, Blender will not work on your system. Likewise, if you're using Mac OS, then you must have the latest version of OS on your system, like 10.02, that is minimum, or the latest version of your operating system for Blender to work on your system. The graphics card is very, very important. If you don't have a good graphics card, you can just go on Google, search for your total graphics card. It's very easy for you to download it and install. The graphics card is very, very important. And the feature requirements, like in future, like they are working on Blender 2.90, it will affect those using Mac OS of 10.12. If you're using 10.12, then you have to update your Mac OS to 10.13 for you to use the feature version of Blender. So back to the business, you can go ahead and download Blender now. It is just 135 megabytes. If you want this 2.82 that I'm using, go for the previous version right here. You can just click here, download previous version. I'm using 2.82. Here is it. So you can download this one, or you can download the latest one, 2.83. Any one of your choice. The version here, it doesn't matter. All what matters is what you can do. This tutorial, the version has no issue. So download Blender and let's get started to Blender. Welcome back, guys. If you've installed Blender on your system and you don't have issue of graphics card, then when you launch Blender, you should see a welcome screen like this if you are using 2.82. But if you are using 2.83, the splash screen will be different. But you can still follow this tutorial. The splash screen is just like the welcome page that you're going to see when you launch Blender. So this is going to indicate the version you are using. I'm using 2.82. If you're using 2.83, you're going to see it up here. This splash screen is having different panel. We have the new file and we have the recent file. This new file is when you want to create a new project. So you can create a new project through this general, or if you want to create a project using 2D animation, you can come here, sculpting, VFX, video editing. You can create new projects using all this. If you have an existing project on your system that you've worked on, then you can open that existing project, the one you've worked on your system before, through this place. All the recent files you've worked on, like 5 of the recent files you worked on, will be listed here. And this release note is based on the version you are using. So if you understand this splash screen, then I'm going to create a new project using general, because that is the general way of creating a project in Blender. I'm not going for 2D animation. I will have to click 2D animation, but I want a general project, so I'm going to click here. Once I click here, this splash screen is going to disappear, and once it disappears, I'm going to have the default layout for Blender. This default layout, as you can see here, we have 3 default items in it. We have the cube, we have the camera, and we have the lights. This entire place is referred to as 3D viewport. You can move around the 3D viewport using your middle mouse button. You can as well change from 3D viewport in this panel here. You can see the default here is 3D viewport. You can change the view to image editor, to UV editor, shader editor, any one you want. You can change the panel here, but on default it will be in 3D viewports. Right here we have our outliner. Our outliner is going to outline the object we have in our 3D viewport. Here I have my camera, here is the camera, here I have the cube, here is the cube, I have the light, here is the light. So whatsoever we are having inside this 3D viewport, all will be outlined right here. The next one you are seeing here is referred to as the property bar. The property bar change depending on the object you select. This is the property bar, and you can as well change it here to any of the view that you want, but on default is on property bar. This is the properties bar, so everything here is for property of a particular object. So depending on the object I select, the property is going to change. If I select the light, see what happens. If I select the cube, see what happens. So the property is changing depending on the object selected. The next thing you are seeing here is referred to as the toolbox. The very first one here is the select box, and that is what we are using to select a particular object in 3D viewport. The next one is the cursor. This cursor matters a lot when you want to place an object in 3D viewport. You're going to see it along the line when we start modeling our object. So we have move tool. This move tool allows us to move an object in any axis that we want. You can move the object in Z axis, you can move it on Y axis, and you can as well move it in X axis. So in 3D we are having 3 different axes. We have the Z axis, we have the Y axis, and we have the X axis. So we have the rotate. Rotate is used to rotate the object on different axes as well. You can rotate the objects in Z, the X and Y axis. So we have the scale. You can as well scale an object on different axes. You can scale on Z axis, you can as well scale on X axis, likewise scale on Y axis. So scaling an object is increasing or decreasing the size of a particular object. Likewise, we have the transform tool. Transform tools combine the move tool, the rotating tool, and likewise the scaling tool. In this transform tool, we have rotate, we have scaling, and we have move tool. So you can move the object or you can rotate the object, and you can as well scale the object in any form that you want using this transform tool. You can scale, you can rotate, and we can as well move the object to any part in our 3D viewport. So we have this annotate here. This annotate is used in order to make a comment in our 3D viewports. This annotate can be used for many things, but the simplest one that you need to know now that is used for, you can use to make a comment, like to write anything on our 3D viewport. Anything you are writing here will not display when you render out the video. We have our measurements. This is the measure tool. This measurement can be used to measure a particular object. If you want a particular measurement for a particular object, then you can use this measurement to measure that object. You can hide this toolbar by pressing letter T on your keyboard. If you press letter T on your keyboard, the toolbar will be hidden. If you press T again, it will come out. So you can hide the toolbox using T on your keyboard. Just tap T, it will hide. If you type T again, it will come outside. We also have another bar here. If you press N on your keyboard, there's a bar that will come outside in this part. If you press N again, the bar will go in. This bar is used for you to transform the tool as well. Any item you choose, the settings here is going to change depending on the item you selected. If I choose this cube, I can adjust the location, the rotation, and the scaling of this particular object using this. All these things you are seeing here, this item, tool, and view will be there on your own system on default, but this others one depends on the add-on that you install on your system. And what I mean by add-on, I'm going to explain later in this series. In 3D, we have the Z axis, as I've said, we have the Y axis, and we have the X axis. So you can as well navigate through the 3D viewport using this. You can move around using this in our 3D viewports. So you can as well move around using the middle mouse button. But if you don't have a mouse, you can navigate using this 3D cursor to navigate. Likewise, you can as well zoom in, and you can as well zoom out of the 3D viewport using this zoom tool. Likewise, you can as well pan around the 3D viewport using this pan. You can as well click to see what is the camera seeing or looking at right now. This one is for camera to toggle what the camera is looking at. If I press this now, you're going to see what the camera is looking at. The camera is currently seeing this right now. So if we move our object to this part, this is what the camera is actually seeing. If I scale my object, this is exactly what the camera is seeing. If I press this again, this is what the camera is seeing. If we click on this camera, this is exactly what you're going to see when you render out this 3D viewport, this particular object. So this is what you're going to see. There is a shortcut for the camera. If you don't want to be using all this, you can press 0 on your keyboard. You're going to see the same thing like this one. 0 on your keyboard, or you click here. But on default, when you open Blender, if you press 0 on your keyboard, it will not work because you have to make some changes on your system. Go to Edit, you click on Preferences, then you come to Input. If you click on this input, you are to emulate the number pad, because if you're not using a normal number pad, then you can still emulate the number pad. Likewise, you can emulate the 3-button mouse. If you don't have a mouse, if you're using a normal laptop, then you have to click here to emulate the 3-button mouse. So click here and click this. Automatically, when you click cancel here, it's going to save the settings for you. You don't have to come here, then click save. When you click cancel, it will save the settings for you. So now when you click 0 on your keyboard, it's going to give you something like this. G is the shortcut to move an object and in the 3D viewport. YR is the shortcut to rotate a particular object. YX is the shortcut to scale an object in any axis. So you can scale in X, Y, or Z axis. If you don't want to be coming here, then you can make use of those shortcuts. S is scale, R is rotate, YG is move. So you can master that and make use of it. G to move, R to rotate, and S to scale. We have this menu here: file, edit, render, window, and F. These are just our menu bar, and this is another layout. On default, we are on our default layout. So we have the modeling, we have the sculpting, we have the UV editing layout, we have the texture paint layout, shading layout, animation, rendering, compositing. All these are different layouts on their own, but on default you're going to have our layout to be on default layout. So if you get this, it's going to be on default layout. So let's assume now you want to create a new project. From here you just click on this file, you click on this file, you click new, and you click general. Since we are working on the general project, it will ask you want to save this, just don't save. So we'll be back to our default 3D viewports where we have the cube, the lights, and the camera. So they are here for us on default. So let's assume now I want to add another object. I've explained that this 3D cursor, anywhere it is, that is where the object you want to add will appear. So you can click on this add. You can add any of this. You can add a mesh, a curve, surface, metal ball, text, grease pencil. All these are the items you can add to our 3D viewports that you can use to work or make our design. So let's assume now I want to add a circle. I can click on this circle to add a circle. If I want to add a UV sphere, I can click on it to add it. So it will be on my 3D viewport immediately. But don't forget, anywhere we have our cursor, that is where the item will appear. The item appears here now because we have our cursor here. So let me move it out on our x-axis so we can see we have this to be here. So if I should take my cursor and put the cursor here and go back to add, if I click on add, if I click on mesh, if I click on this UV sphere, it's going to appear here because we have our cursor to be here. If I take my cursor back to this place, then if I go to add, go to mesh, add any of this, then it's going to appear here. So anything you are adding in 3D viewports, anywhere you have the cursor, that is where the object is going to appear. So you can play around the objects by moving them with G. You can as well scale with X. You can scale with X. You can rotate with R. So you can just play around it just to get used to Blender. So to delete a particular item or a particular object in our 3D viewport, just click on that object and click X. X is to delete the object. If you click S, it will ask you delete, just click OK. If I click on this one now, if I click X, it will click OK. Then you can delete any of the objects. Down here we have our timeline. This timeline is used for animation. As you can see, we have the play forward, the play backward, we have all this. All these are for animating. We'll be using this when we want to animate a particular object or a particular character. When you are working with a particular object, we have different mode for that particular object. On default is on object mode. So I can switch from object mode to edit mode. I can as well switch from edit mode to sculpt mode, to fatness paint, wave paint, and texture paint. On default, it is on object mode. So if I want to edit or transform or scale any of this, I can scale using the object mode. Likewise, I can as well scale using the edit mode. But this edit mode, it will give you another feature on how you can edit the object further. So you can move or scale a particular fatness or particular face out of the from the object. So we'll be using this edit mode very well when you want to edit a particular object or transform a particular object. The shortcut to switch between edit mode and object mode is tab. When you press tab on your keyboard, this is going to change immediately from object mode to edit mode. If you press tab again, it will change from edit mode to object mode. So the shortcut is tab. When you press tab, it will change from object mode to edit mode. So you can click this add to add any objects, and you can as well click Shift A to add a particular object. If you click add here, the same thing. If you click Shift A, the same thing. So you can add a particular object to our 3D viewport. You can zoom in and zoom out using your mouse your middle mouse button. This is just the introduction to Blender. I hope you learn a lot in this video. If you are new to Blender, this is just a video for you to get started. I hope to see you in the next video where we'll be modeling our object to form up our scene. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, kindly do so now so that you can get notification when I drop the new video. Thank you, and I hope you learn a lot. See you in the next video.